Parents, have you tried reading aloud to your child and you wonder if she's even all there with you? Or have you found yourself suddenly reading alone as your child has wandered off down the hall and to find a toy or a device to play with? Well, in this video, I'm going to describe and demonstrate a few ways that you can keep and hold your child's attention and improve their literacy development through reading aloud. I am Dr. Jen Schlaber with Lasting Literacy Solutions. I use my 20 plus years in education to help educators and families know more about literacy learning, because when we know more, we can do better. So we know that reading aloud is one of the most influential things that we can do for children. If you haven't already, check out my first video in this series where I talk about why reading aloud is so impactful. But if a child's attention is wavering, they're not as likely to gain the benefits of reading aloud to them. So, to increase attention and enjoyment, there are some small things you can do before, during, and after reading aloud that will make a big difference. So, before even reading, it's good to understand how to set it up so it's going to go well. So first, the right text makes a world of difference. In the fourth video in this series, I'll focus more on what to read aloud to your children, but here are just a couple tips. First, offer choice. It's very rare that children are given a choice about what is read aloud to them in school or what they're allowed to read. So present 2 or 3 texts of interest to your child and give them a chance to choose what you read aloud to them. That will often increase their attention right away. Also, try for variety. So some stories, or literary texts we call them, or some informational texts. Kids have all kinds of different interests and tastes, just like we do. And sometimes your favorites are not necessarily theirs. Also, the younger the child, the more pictures and the shorter the text in general. All right? You also want to set the stage to make this all go well. So first of all, help everyone, including yourself, keep attention in the moment, such as turning off devices and even putting them out of sight. If possible, arrange yourself so that your child can see the print or text and the pictures as well. And then also be realistic about time. Shoot for quality over quantity of time. Make it a very focused and intentional time rather than trying to stretch it out a long time. So I'm going to demonstrate for you a few techniques that you can use during reading aloud with your child. So first I'll focus on what you can do when you're reading a story, and then some different things that you can do when you're reading an informational text. When you're going to read aloud to your child, you want to try to spark their interest right off the bat. So your child may be one of many who really doesn't like reading and doesn't like even to be read aloud to. So it helps to spark their interest in what you're reading, even if they don't particularly like reading. So with a literary text like this, for example, you can start right even before you open that front cover and ask a question that's going to spark their interest and kind of keep them going through the text. So for example, I might, using just the pictures, I might say, oh goodness, he looks kind of worried. His face looks kind of worried. It looks kind of stormy. What do you think might happen to him? And that question can kind of pique their interest and keep them going through the text to find out what's going to happen to him. You also want to, when you ask a question like this, give them a chance to think and respond. Sometimes they're just going to be like, oh, I don't know. But try to pry a little bit and see if they can come up with something. With very young children, it's also beneficial to point to the words in the text as you're reading aloud. If it has too many words, it gets burdensome, but if there aren't too many words on the page, help them kind of get an understanding of print by pointing to the words as you read. So, little hedgehog was making his bed for the winter when a sudden gust of wind blew him off his feet. So notice I just kind of sweep along. I don't tap each one. There's just too many words to be able to do that. So just kind of sweeping along is great. If there are multiple paragraphs on a page and it gets to be a little much, even just pointing to where you are on the page will kind of draw your child's attention to that as well and help them make those connections. All right. Also, you want to try to use your voice to really engage your child. So we can do that through using our voice with characters and using our voice with just what's going on in the text. So I'm going to demonstrate here. "I'll have to stay with Badger until this storm has gone," he said at last, pulling his woolly hat firmly over his prickles. Then he snuggled into his cozy scarf, put on his mittens, and with a deep breath, he set off. Okay, so I'm going to use my voice to really capture their attention as much as I can. All right? The other thing you can do is react to the text. So when you react to the text, it shows the child that you're also thinking about what's going on in the text, and reading is thinking. So I might say here, for example, "Oh, goodness, he is so brave. That storm looks terrible. He's very brave to go out in the storm and try to find a place to stay that's safe." All right, so I can react to the text, and that also pulls their attention in. Other ways that you can react are laughter. There's a lot of funny books out there. Even sadness or empathy, talking back to a character like, "Why would you do that?" Just like we do sometimes with movies. Questioning a character, expressing confusion even, or doubt, and even surprise. Excitement. Those are all things we can do to show kind of how we're thinking about the text as we read along, and that holds your child's attention as well. Also, during reading, you want to help children make connections between pictures and words. So, for example, the wind was even stronger in the meadow. So I might say, "Oh my gosh, he looks like he's squinting because that wind is so strong." Okay, so I'm connecting the pictures to the words. That really helps them. And then also connecting different parts of the text. So for example, I might, when I get to this point in the text, and go, "Oh, you know what? He already gave away something in this text. He gave away his hat, and now look, now he's giving away his mittens." And I might even flip back, or have the child flip back and show me where he gave away his hat. And they can go back and find where he gave away his hat. Okay, so find connections through the story. Another thing to do as you're reading along, and don't feel like you need to do all of these things all of the time, just interspersing these things throughout a text as you're reading helps to keep their engagement. But too much can be like overkill, and then they lose interest and they just want you to read on. So we don't want to do that. It's supposed to be fun, okay? We can also be asking or revisiting questions that we asked in the beginning. So, "Hey, what did you think might happen to this little guy in the beginning? Is that happening? Do you still think that's going to happen? Or what might he give away next? I mean, what does he have left now?" Okay. And there's different types of questions that you can ask. But the most important thing is just really having some dialogue with the child, some conversation with the child as you read the text to keep their interest. So after you finish a book, a lot of times we just say, "Oh, the end," and close the book and off it goes. But that tends to make a child believe that that's the point of reading, is to get to the end, and that's not. So if after you finish reading the text, if you can have just a very brief conversation like, "Hey, what did you think of that book?" Or "What was your favorite part in there?" Very brief. Doesn't have to be long and drawn out or anything. But that can help children realize that when we read books, that we're reading to think, and to carry stories with us. Okay, so as I said, I want to demonstrate for you how some of these strategies work with informational text, which is very different. I'm going to be using an iPad. There are several apps that I use for digital text for kids. These are all associated with my local library, Libby, Overdrive, and Hoopla. And then also Epic is another site, and I'll make another video that kind of shares some of these things about how to get a hold of digital texts. But the text that I'm going to work with today is called Find Out Sharks. And this particular text actually starts out right on the cover with a question: "What do you want to find out?" Okay, so that does the work for you in some ways to try and pique their interest. What do you want to find out about sharks? Let's see if we actually can find that out in this book. Now, informational texts are complicated a lot of times, in not all of them, but in the way that they're designed. And so that changes kind of how we go about reading them. So I'm not going to read an entire informational text to my child. They'll get so tired, and so will you. But just reading even one page like this one, okay, where there's a lot going on, can be a wonderful experience for a child, and not make it miserable because it's not so long. Okay, one of the things that I love about using digital text is I can zoom in and make text bigger and focus my child's attention on things, and also focus my own attention, because sometimes there's so much going on in a page, it's a little bit much. So many informational texts also have headings that are questions, like this one says, what is a shark? So I can use that to spur a little conversation with my child, saying, okay, so what do you think makes a shark a shark? You know, why is a goldfish a kind of shark? And the kid's like, no, a goldfish is not a shark. So what makes a shark a shark? And then seeing, as you're going through this page, you know, what does the author give us to help us understand what a shark is as compared to like a goldfish? So as I said, that's the question that you can start with to pique their curiosity. Also, demonstrating pointing is a little bit different in an informational text. We can blow up the text to do that. And there are lots of different, levels of informational text where this one might be more feasible. But also, when you're reading an informational text, just showing your child where you are on the page can be really helpful. So there's a lot going on this page. It's like a diagram with captions and things. So even just pointing to where you are on the page can really help them understand how to read a text like this, and direct their attention more. Okay. Also, demonstrating their voice changes is a little different because there aren't really usually characters in these types of text. But you want to use your voice to help them comprehend. So I'm going to demonstrate here. So what is a shark? Sharks are fish. So I emphasize the word are. Sharks are fish. But unlike most other kinds of fish, they have a flexible skeleton made of a material called cartilage instead of bone. So that's a lot of information in one sentence. And so I'm going to emphasize certain words to help them understand. And I might even just stop and say, okay, so like cartilage is like in your ear versus like a bone is like in your arm. It's a lot harder. Okay, so sharks are made mostly of cartilage. So I'm going to paraphrase a little bit. Okay. The other thing that I can do is use synonyms. Okay. They have gills behind their head to breathe, and their strong tail powers them forward. It means like pushes them forward. Okay. And so instead of saying powers them forward, sometimes a synonym can help them understand in an informational text. I also can demonstrate a reaction. So for example, just like in a literary text, in this section here called tail, a shark's tail shape tells us how well it can swim. Wow, I never knew this. What kind of tail tells us how it can swim? Crescent-shaped tails belong to the fastest sharks. Okay, crescent shape, like the moon kind of, like the crescent moon. Floppy, rounded tails make for slower, sluggish, or not very fast swimmers. Oh my goodness, I had no idea that just looking at their tails would tell me something about how they swim. So reacting to what it is that I'm reading shows, again, reading is thinking, reading is thinking. Also demonstrating for kids the connection between pictures and words is really important in an informational text because, again, the setup or text features can be really complicated. So showing them the arrows, pointing to the arrows to help them understand how a diagram is working becomes really important with an informational text. Okay. Let's see. Also asking and revisiting questions. I would say when you're reading an informational text with a child, it's almost more important to have more talking than actual reading, because there's the information can be so dense. So don't be afraid of just reading a little bit and then talking about it, and using questions and things like that to guide the conversation. What was surprising to you? Why was that surprising? Do sharks have the same senses that we do? So that's the kind of question where they just said right there about their senses, and you can get them thinking, oh, wait a minute, how are sharks like us? Okay. And then after finishing, and most of the time it's a portion of an informational text like that, it's not a complete informational text, but after reading, again, we don't want to just say, okay, the end, we'll pick it up tomorrow. But instead, just a brief question. Which part did you like the most, or what did you like learning about the most? That can really help your child understand that we aren't reading just to get to the end. Okay. So which of these techniques might you try? Let me know in the comments below, and you can let me know how it goes too. If you have a friend who might be interested in knowing this information, please go ahead and pass on the video or even post it on your Facebook site. And you can always connect with me on my website, www.lastingliteracysolutions.com. Thanks for visiting. Bye-bye.